What is up, guys? Okay, we're gonna get this started here. Position rankings, starting with quarterback. So this is kind of a look at this year, predominantly. Okay, even with Dynasty, I'm looking at who is the best position group this year. With Dynasty, of course, we throw in the looking ahead as well, who looks solid down the line. But it's always a one-year season. Okay. You need to know when you got to sell this year if you don't have a chance to win, but most people do have at least an outside chance to win. Sometimes it only takes a couple new players. So I'm looking heavily at this coming season. That's the basis, but then also down the road, who looks healthy down the road. Okay. First, I'm going to give you the QB ranks from last year, based on Sleeper, based on total points at the end of the year. If you look in Sleeper and you look at their history, it's not always based on our scoring system. If you click on the player and then click on history, if you filter by the season performance last year, then it gives points based on our system, how many points the guy ended up with in our league. So just so you know that, because I don't know, when you click on their history in their profile, if it's like a 4-point for quarterback or what, but sometimes it lines up. Like I know it says Josh Allen's like 1, 2, 1, 2. But then if you look at our rankings and what I have here, he shows up as number 4. So that's based largely on our different scoring than kind of what would be considered standard, which might be 4 points per quarterback touchdown, something like that. Josh Allen is a good example of how those two can vary. Okay, so here's the QB rankings. I'm going to try to put a picture of these right about here, maybe over here, so you guys can see it, because sometimes when it's just me talking, it's hard to follow these. But here's the 2024 QB rankings. Number 1 quarterback this year for our league was Lamar Jackson, managed by JD. Okay, number 2 was Joe Burrow, my quarterback. So JD almost had both of those guys. He should probably have both of those guys. But Lamar 1, Joe Burrow 2. Baker Mayfield, number 3, managed by Phil. Okay, Josh Allen, number 4, managed by Bert. Number 5, rookie Jaden Daniels, managed by Daryl. Number 6, Jared Goff, managed by Phil. So that's 2 for Phil in the top 6. Number 7, Sam Darnold, who was also managed by Phil last year. So last year, Phil had basically the number 1 QB room. That doesn't mean he will have it this year for my projections, this list right here. But Sam Darnold is now managed by Mark since he's in Seattle. That was just going to happen one way or another. Number 8, Bo Nix, rookie out of Oregon, of course, managed by Steve. Number 9, Jalen Hurts comes in at number 9. A little surprising. A slight down year for Jalen Hurts. Still comes in top 10, managed by Lucas. Number 10, Kyler Murray, managed by Bert. Number 11, Patrick Mahomes, managed by Mark. And number 12, Justin Herbert, managed by me. So we have in that top 12, and I'm going to put my hands up so that I know this is the point in the video where I need to get ready to switch this picture out. But in that top 12, we have Lamar, we have Phil with multiple QB1s. We have Mark actually with multiple QB1s now that he has Sam Darnold. Doesn't again mean that it'll carry over this year. I think Seattle wants to go in a very different direction. I have multiple, Bert has multiple. So that's going to give you some indications of who's, and Phil, I don't know if I said that, of who might be in that top group, moving in, looking at this year, okay? Starting at number 13, so we're going to go back to this picture right here. Number 13, Brock Purdy. Okay, Brock Purdy for Adam. That's Adam's highest so far. Geno Smith, who is now on Phil's team at number 14. Aaron Rodgers, JD, and Caleb Williams, JD. So we got JD had the top guy, and now he's got 2 at number 14, number 16, 15, 15 and 16, sorry, 15 and 16 in a row, which I see one of them maybe moving up and one possibly moving down. Number 17, Sean's first QB on this list, coming in at number 17, Jordan Love. Then Steve gets another one with CJ Stroud. Daryl with Matt Stafford next. Bryce Young, another one for Sean. Number 21 is Drake May for Bert. Number 22, Kirk Cousins for Adam. Probably not going to be up that high again. Number 23, Tua, who's probably lower than he should be. If you look at the average, he's higher. Average by game, I mean, because of his injuries. Number 24, Russell Wilson with Mark, who did not play the first 5 games. Number 25, Anthony Richardson for Sean, okay? Didn't play a number of games. Number 27, or number 26, Derek Carr for me. Number 27, Trevor Lawrence for Sean. Number 28, Will Levis for Lucas. Number 29, Jameis Winston. He did it with a very small number of games for me. And number 30, Daniel Jones for Adam, who missed, he got benched for the second part of the season. Okay, so that's our top 30, okay? There's our top 30, going through those players. It does change a little bit, so I put in some surprising or notable changes when you order by average points per game played to kind of get rid of injury issues. So Dak solidly jumps into the top 30. He should be in there for average, but obviously he was hurt for a part of the season. Also dealing with CeeDee Lamb being hurt for part of the season. That's going to affect our wide receiver rankings too. Weirdly enough, Drake May fell. I think, I'm pretty sure I have that right. When you looked at average, Trevor Lawrence actually falls when you look at average. So he was 27, he drops to 29 when you do average points. So not a good season for Trevor. And the top 4 doesn't change. The top 4 is completely unchanged when averaging, going by average points per game rather than total points. Okay. Projected risers for next year, Justin Fields is projected to go to number 16. With his new starting job, that should be his for the year. Dak is projected to return to a QB2, I think at number 15 or 16, or 15 maybe. Justin Fields is number 16. Michael Penix is into QB2 territory. I think he was 20, 21, somewhere around there. Jaden Daniels, they project to be the number 2 overall QB behind Lamar. And J.J. McCarthy would jump up to QB12 in their projections for next year, which they already have on there. So, all right. QB teams, the rankings here, okay? I'm mostly focusing on your top 3 quarterbacks on your roster. As always, I look at this each time, and in order to compare them, I ask myself, who would I rather have right now moving forward? So I look at the overall QB rooms of the top 3 especially. The ancillary pieces can be tiebreakers, but the top 3 likely quarterbacks on your team, and I say, which group of 3 would I rather have if I was starting a team right now? And that completely up to me subjective way of looking at it is how I form the final rankings here, okay? So yes, I'm looking at last year's finish. That's part of it. I'm also looking at who am I confident in going forward, which room am I confident in, and if I stack them all up and put them into a trade package, which side of the trade would I take? So here we go. That's how I did it. That's my justification. Doesn't mean you have to like it, but it's what I'm doing here, and it's my video. So the last place team, number 10 on our list, what I consider to be the weakest QB room in our league is Adam. Okay, that's Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins, and Daniel Jones as his top 3. If you are keeping up, that means he has 1 starter right now. This is what did in Lucas last year in the same video. He has 1 for sure starter right now, and that's Brock Purdy, who was number 12 last year. So not a great place to be in. He also has Aiden O'Connell, not going to be playing starting quarterback, and he has Trey Lance on his roster. Okay, so those are his other pieces here. Purdy was a QB2 for us. I mean, QB1 in 12-team leagues, but for us, it's a QB2. Cousins and Jones were QB3s on their best days. Maybe Daniel Jones gets a starting nod eventually in Indy after Anthony Richardson inevitably is terrible. But it's this is definitely a top landing spot for Cam Ward in our draft. Okay, Adam has the 3rd overall pick. I don't know how not to have that be the pick right now, because it is Brock Purdy and backups in a super flex league. So he earns our number 10 spot as of today. Number 9, this is going to be, not going to be happy about this, I know that, but it's Sean, okay? Jordan Love, Michael Penix, and Bryce Young, okay? Trevor Lawrence is actually the ancillary piece here, and Anthony Richardson. Sean will call this a crime, but it's a fact that the highest rated member of this squad was number 17, lower than Adams, number 12, Brock Purdy, okay? Number 17 last year, and Jordan Love actually dropped to number 19 when I changed it for average, which is kind of what sealed the deal on this for me. They've gone to Josh Jacobs. They have moved their offense to Josh Jacobs. I don't see that changing a bunch next year. They have a bunch of wide receiver 2s there. That's what they have. They have a bunch of wide receiver 2s. If they get him a wide receiver 1, then maybe. Jayden Reed looked great. He's a slot receiver. He's a wide receiver 2. He is not. He's not a star in this league. He is a very good slot receiver who can have huge games, but that doesn't sustain a quarterback over the long haul. And they don't have a wide receiver 1 at all. They might just have wide receiver 3s, to be honest. Like Jayden Reed's a 2. Christian Watson is a best ball kind of player, okay? They need something else there. Don't tell me about Dontavian Wicks. The guy cannot catch a football. Okay, after that, he's got Michael Penix, who could be a thing. So that's what this Sean's whole roster, let me just read off of here instead of getting into too much of that. Having depth helps him beat out Adam, who does not have depth, but a bunch of guys that have been mid to this point in their actual careers do not get you above guys who have scored higher because of potential. It just doesn't at this point. The potential this room has been built on has never been realized by any of them. Trevor Lawrence's potential has never been realized. Jordan Love's potential it looked good at points last year, but he's your number 1. So that's why he ends up at number 9. I'm not going to say Bryce Young is going to be great all of a sudden. Okay, I'm not going to say Michael Penix is going to be great next season. We haven't seen it yet. Don't trust it. Doesn't mean they couldn't finish higher than all these. Okay, number 8, and they could definitely finish higher than this room. But number 8 is Mark's team with Sam Darnold, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson. Sean will undoubtedly say his team he'd rather have his room than this one, and that would be ignoring that this team has 2 top 12 quarterbacks from last year. Yeah, Darnold's going to Seattle. Maybe not a big passing room there. Then I think they want to run the ball. I think that's why they moved on from DK. Tyler Lockett's gone. It's Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Those are plenty good to get you a good quarterback season. But Darnold will not have Justin Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson and Aaron Jones and all that. I think this team wants to run the ball. But Mahomes, in down years, is still a QB1, okay? A fringe QB1, but still consistently a QB1. Maybe, yeah. So that is possible, but Mahomes has done it where none of Sean's quarterbacks have been that high before. Russ is an idiot. Who cares? But he's there. He might throw the ball deep to Malik Neighbors. Okay, so maybe that helps. But right now, if I had to choose, I would have to pick this side with Mahomes because he just looks better than anyone on. Of course, he looks better. I mean, he's Patrick Mahomes. Even in fantasy, though, he's looked better than anyone on Sean's team to this point. So number 7 is Lucas. A little surprising for me. At first, I thought this would be higher. Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, and Will Levis. This is being held up, despite the lack of depth. This is being held up by 2 mobile QBs who will both be starters this season, who both could be. I mean, I think I put on my video that I never made about needs or about free agency, what it'll look like, that Justin Fields has been a top 10 quarterback pretty much every single time he plays. That's just what happens because he runs the ball so much. Jalen Hurts had a down season at number 9, but he's another mobile QB. The tush push, that is being tabled. Look at changing that. So Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields are going to run the ball, and they're going to score. And this year, I'd rather have those 2 than the rooms behind them, even though Will Levis is the 3rd. Yeah, he's not going to be a starter. I get it. But I'd rather have those two than the rooms behind them at this point, because they both will run the ball. This could be a potent duo, basically. He needs a third player. He certainly needs a third one. But don't forget, that trade gave him Justin Fields. And before that, it was Jalen Hurts and Will Levis. And he's not picking ahead of Adam in the draft. He needed a quarterback. So just some justification why Lucas made that trade with me. All right, number 6 is Darrell. Again, one that I was a little surprised wasn't higher just because of Jaden Daniels. He's got Daniels, Matt Stafford, and J.J. McCarthy. It's one guy, though, is not enough to move this team up. And until we see anything from J.J. McCarthy, I can't reward it, okay? Maybe he'll be great. He's got plenty of weapons. That coaching staff is great for quarterbacks, okay? Just look at the last few. Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold. They looked a lot better there than they looked elsewhere. So will they be great for J.J. McCarthy? I bet they will, and I bet it'll work pretty well for fantasy. But I'm not going Sam Darnold 7th or 6th quarterback for JJ yet. Plus, it's one guy for Jaden Daniels. I mean, that's still what it comes down to. He's a stud. We've seen rookies have great years and then kind of back off after that. Have some down years. C.J. Stroud, Robert Griffin, but either way, Stafford's getting older, okay? Jaden Daniels is just not enough to carry this team higher than the number 6 spot right now, okay? Number 5 comes in at Steve, okay? And that's one where Jaden Daniels could elevate this QB room over Steve's, but he's got Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, and Tua. Okay, Tua without injury concerns would move this ranking up even higher. We saw sophomore slumps from Stroud. We saw a sophomore slump from Stroud. Now he's lost a lot of his OL. It wasn't a highly rated OL, but he's lost them, and there's not a great replacement plan that I've seen either. We'll see if Bo Nix can improve on his performance, but I almost feel like he came in as what he is going to be. Okay, his rookie year might be his ceiling. He was a lot of experience. I don't see him getting significantly better in any area. Maybe the offense does, but we might have seen the best Bo Nix, and we might have just seen also his floor. Like, he might just be what he is at this point. I have doubts about whether he has a much higher ceiling, even as a big Bo Nix fan. I feel like that's just what he is. He was QB8. It's not bad. I would take that. You know, that's a pretty good career if you can just be QB8 every year. But he does. I don't see Steve's big ceiling guy. I don't see a number 1 QB. None of them run. Well, Bo Nix runs. Bo Nix runs. Not enough, though. I don't see a QB1 season on this team, and that's kind of the difference between this team and other teams as we go forward, okay? So that's what Steve ends up at number 5. It's a good spot. I think maybe he could slip into the top 4, not top 3 with a couple good seasons this year, but here's where there's a big demarcation line. I wouldn't be surprised. Any of the top 4 teams, I would not be surprised in the least if any of them ended up as the number 1 room at the end of the year. Last year it was Phil, okay, was number 1. I would have put that as the number 1 team because he had number 4 and number 6 on his team, or number 3 and number 6, I believe. So these top 4 are adjustable, okay? Number 4, though, this was tough for me. I moved this team from 2nd to 4th to 3rd to 2nd in my rankings over and over. So just so you know, there's not a lot deciding between these 2 teams, or these 4 teams. Number 4 is JD. Okay, he's got the number 1 QB from this past year, Lamar Jackson. He has Lamar Jackson, and he has Caleb Williams and Aaron Rodgers. JD would have been a slam dunk if he still had number 1 Joe Burrow, okay? Or if he would be slam dunk for number 1 if he had Joe Burrow, because then he would have had Lamar, who was number 1 this year, and Burrow, who was number 2 this year. In the time I wrote this, like I said, I moved him multiple times. There's just not a ton separating these groups. In this case, it's the uncertainty of Caleb Williams, who should have a better OL. He should still have very good weapons. We have to see him make the right read. We have to see him make that read in a timely fashion, and we have to see him fulfill the promise of his potential, okay? If he can't get rid of the ball, he keeps taking sacks, and he's not making the first read fast enough, he's going to just become another early career Sam Darnold. That's what I'm looking at here, if he can't get rid of the ball faster and to the right guy. If he takes a step forward and Rodgers can get a starting spot, probably Pittsburgh, this could easily be the number 1 team. Totally no doubt in my mind, could see that. This might look way too low, but again, when we're talking about razor thin margins between these teams, the lack of a surefire number 2 is what moved JD down here. Because Lamar is great, but he's not the number 1 every single year. He hasn't been. Okay, he's gone up and down. Okay, he goes up and down more than, like, Josh Allen's a lot more consistent than Lamar has been. And he gets surprisingly few rushing touchdowns, 4 and 5 over the past 2 years. So, all right, number 3 goes on to Phil. Okay, now, like I said, based on last year, this is the number 1 QB room. Baker was 3rd, Goff was 6th, I think Darnold was 7 or something like that. So let me go back up. Let me go back to my little rankings here. Exactly. Baker was 3rd, Goff was 6th, and Sam Darnold was 7th. Now you replace Sam Darnold with Geno Smith, going to the Raiders. Not as good, okay. Baker without Liam Cohen and Dave Canales, maybe he didn't need them. Maybe I'm not putting enough respect on Baker's name here, but I see him as a top 5, top 6, top 7 QB, okay? Goff without Ben Johnson, that's one that's going to have to prove to me. He still has the weapons. They're still playing a dome. He's good, but if you went through, though, it comes back to my system of asking if Phil offered me his whole QB room for either mine or Burt, would I take it? And I would not, okay? It may be wrong, but I would rather have Joe Burrow or Josh Allen, me and Burt's top guy, than Baker Mayfield, okay? I would rather have Justin Herbert or Kyler Murray, me and Burt's seconds, than Jared Goff. Now, maybe you might say that Goff was higher than Herbert. Good, yeah, I agree. Obviously, it's not even agreement, it's just the data, but I'd still rather have Herbert at this point in the career. I'd rather have that offense. I think that offense is building more. Certainly, I'd rather have Kyler most of the time, but again, those both could be a mistake. That's what I would do right now. And I would definitely rather have Dak or Drake May than Geno Smith at this point, which is a huge decider for me. That's the one where it's like, that's yes. That's a yes for me on either of those two over Geno, and that's what this comes down to. So, Phil, you're number 3. Number 2 is me, okay? Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Dak Prescott are my top 3. I do have some other potential starters, but for now, that's what we're going with. I kind of had to stop saying a lot of those teams I just said, they don't have that extra backup starters. But Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott. If I'd kept Justin Fields, this could very well be the number 1 QB room, because I have to give an edge to mobile QBs. Therefore, I have to give the edge to the guy with 3 mobile QBs, while I hold basically 3 pocket passers who can scramble a little. Herbert was so much better over the second half of the season than the first. I feel like the Chargers offense is going to get going more. I feel like they're going to have more. They're going to have another receiving option for him. Okay, they already brought Mike Williams back. Okay, whatever. But along with Ladd McConkey, I think they're either going to get themselves a tight end that can actually play consistently. They already brought in Najee. That's not something that scares me in terms of taking away a bunch for Herbert, but it definitely is better for moving the ball than what they had before. I think they're going to get better. Burrow has his dudes, Jamar and Teague, locked up for years. They still have no defense, so they still are going to have to win in shootouts if they're going to win. Dak should have a better all-around offense and be healthy. That's what I'm counting on here. I think that you're going to still have CeeDee Lamb. You're still going to have collection of whatever tight end they think works for them. Promoted their offensive coordinator. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. But it's consistent, at least, for Dak. And they should have a better running back room. They should. I think that all 3 of these guys being in the top 15 is very realistic. And they all could be top 12 quarterbacks in fantasy. Obviously, Dak and Herbert might be interchangeable at the end of that group, maybe 9, 10, 11, 12, one of them being 11, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range. That's kind of how I would view that. But that's it. That's my number 2 group. I wouldn't trade for any other room except for one. Number 1, Burt. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Drake May. Okay, as fantasy manager of Kyler Murray in recent years, I hate him so much. I really do. It's not fun to have him. He doesn't run the ball nearly as much as he should. He disappears too often. And yet, as Spurt's QB2, he's still very valuable, okay? Drake May also brings the ability to run. Maybe he will actually have some wide receivers on his team this year. But I'm high on what I saw from him last year when he was given a chance, okay? Josh Allen's finished with over 100 rushing attempts in 6 straight seasons, and he has 12 and 15 touchdowns in the last 2 years. Lamar has about 30 more rushing attempts during that time per season, but only had 4 rushing touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns over the last 2 years. And he's only hit 7 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, twice in his career. The difference is last year he was throwing the ball a lot better. But while last year was great for Lamar, Josh Allen has outscored him in 4 of the 5 past seasons. Okay, so 4 out of the 5 last 4 out of 5 seasons, Josh Allen has outscored Lamar. There's not a lot separating these two. They are both elite, but we can't go too recency bias and say Lamar is just head and shoulders above Josh Allen when it was 1 season recently, and the rest have been Josh Allen. Okay, God, I thought that was like a bug up there. Josh Allen's just been better most of them recent seasons. Plus, Burt just has more pieces overall. He has all 3 of these guys can score. I think you've got 2 automatic, assuming Kyler starts, and actually maybe he actually runs a little, but I think you got 2 pretty much locked in QB1s and a guy who can be very easily a QB2. So that's it. Again, top 4 I can accept in any order. I do think that is the likely top 4 at the end of the season, depending on injuries, of course, but I think that those 4 can all be adjusted. So that's it. That's the QB ranks for our Dynasty League right now. Tell me where I'm wrong, okay? I'm sure you guys will. All right, peace out. Bye.